to be very hard to uproot it. And that, again, is why it's important to note that the First Amendment does not say citizen. The First Amendment is both a grant of rights to people to speak, but it's also a restraint on the power of government to suppress speech and to suppress ideas. And so when you see these attempts to shut people up by intimidating them and by terrifying them, that does raise very fundamental questions that this country has had to deal with in recurring ways over many generations, and now we're going to have to fight those battles again.
Let's talk just a little bit more about some of the things we're seeing in real time. We're hearing stories of students and others preemptively leaving the country, basically self-deporting. Is that also a strategy, basically to get people to leave on their own?
It's absolutely a strategy. The administration has been quite clear about it. They've said it repeatedly. Again, they're not the first administration to think of this. You can find this in various historical periods before. But I think the terrorist aspect of it, the threats, are quite profound right now. And I mean, I get calls from people all the time asking if they should leave the country. Personally, I don't think we're at a moment where I'm advising people to leave the country. I mean, in general. But I'm certainly advising people to think hard before traveling, and that includes people with green cards, which is pretty unique in my experience. Over many years, there's been a general sense that people who have green cards, that is to say they have lawful permanent resident status, which, by the way, is a status that a person is completely entitled to hold for their whole life if they want to, or if for some reason they can't naturalize and become a U.S. citizen. That was designed to be a stable, protected status, and it is extremely unusual for the government to start digging around in a person's past to find reasons to deport a person with a green card. That, by the way, was one of the unique things that Marco Rubio declared in the Halil case, that he had revoked his green card status. I'm unaware of any provision in law that allows the Secretary of State to simply revoke a person's green card status. That person is entitled to a hearing, as I think we will see. At that hearing, the government is going to have to explain what its reasons were for trying to deport this person. And, we'll see what the evidence is.
Tell us your thoughts about this action taken against birthright citizenship for anybody born in the U.S. after February 19th, 2025. I mean, it's been fought in the court, but it would limit birthright citizenship to at least one parent being a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident to qualify. You've been very critical of this. Talk to me about the ramifications of something like this.
Well, first of all, I think it's useful to go back and ask why this country has birthright citizenship in the first place. Because I think many people think that is kind of odd. U.S. citizenship is such an incredibly valuable commodity. Why do we just give it to people based on the accident of having been born here? That's a fair question. But the answer is important. It was created in the aftermath of the Civil War, primarily to redress a situation in which African Americans, particularly slaves and even freed slaves and even people who had not been enslaved at all, were deemed by the Supreme Court not to be citizens. And the country realized that having a large cohort of people who are excluded from the courts and from the right to vote and all the aspects of citizenship was a very dangerous thing. And it was integral to slavery, but it was also a bad thing in general. And so we created an amendment to the Constitution that guarantees that anyone who's born in the United States, subject to its jurisdiction, which actually means only excluding a very small category of diplomats and Native American Indians, perhaps, and people on warships or invading armies, those people all get citizenship. So we opted for a generous conception of citizenship. And I think that has stood us well. The Supreme Court upheld it in the late 19th century. It's been reaffirmed ever since then in many court opinions. And yet it keeps coming under challenge for varieties of reasons in particular historical periods. But if we remember why we created it in the first place, then I think that helps us to understand what's so dangerous about trying to remove it.
Our guest is legal scholar and immigration expert Daniel Canstrom. Our interview was recorded yesterday. We'll continue our conversation after a short break. I'm Tanya Mosley, and this is Fresh Air.
And another insightful conversation on Fresh Air about a subject that is top of mind for many people, certainly one that is making the headlines daily. You turn to WHYY for news, for information, but also for context and perspective and in-depth conversations like the one that we are listening to together right now.